It's about 13-14 degrees Celsius outside, but the sun just came out, which makes these Formica ants, not sure which species it is, maybe Formica pratense or something. It makes them come out of their nest and do the sun basking, so heating themselves up to, I don't know, get ready for the spring. And I just had a 2-hour information session, so a meeting with the responsible people of the DAAD, the German Academic International Service. We got a dump of information. It's all quite complicated and very confusing to me, I think, because there's no neat checklist that we just can go through. So I'll have to do a lot of administrative things, like checking things with Macquarie University and with the uni in Germany, the Free University Berlin, because the thing is, I get paid through the Free University of Berlin, which get their money from the DAAD, and I'm just abroad for a year, but I'm still getting paid through Germany. So it's maybe that's still the easiest thing, but that means that I have to communicate with or ask with Macquarie, because they'll have to give my visa, and they also need to make sure that I'm being paid enough. And then there's the insurance thing. I'll have to first get into the German social security system by getting a job, which means that maybe I'll have to be employed by the Free University in Berlin for a month or two, which would be better in my case anyway, because then I could develop the software that we need in Berlin, where this guy has already started developing the software, and then I could go with that knowledge to Australia. So I'll have to just figure out when can I start, when do I want to start. Anyway, but they were really lovely, those two people, and it seems like they will be of a lot of help, and I can just ask them whenever I have problems, and they will stand by our side. I always like these administrative people who are just, the angels. Yeah, and now I'll do this. I have a new toy. My brother-in-law lent me this. A good half year into my French learning journey, and I am on a good B2 level of understanding oral and written French, and now it is time for me to start practicing to speak. So I have only spoken one day with a native French speaker, and otherwise not at all. I'm starting with some shadowing to get the pronunciation correct. Qu'est-ce que tu as prévu pour ce week-end? Qu'est-ce que tu as prévu pour ce week-end? Qu'est-ce que tu as prévu pour ce week-end? Ah, très bien. Je pense aller au marché samedi matin. Matin. J'ai besoin de fruits et de légumes frais. The month of April does what it will. It's snowing. The middle of April. After having had like 24 degrees 2 weeks ago. An opportunity for you to get to know someone. Know someone. It's bloody hard. Giving my last comments and edits on a short little paper on how good are bumblebees at landing on horizontal versus vertical flowers, and do they land better on flowers with labellums. So those are described as kind of landing platforms that maybe some orchids have. And I, as an ant guy, am actually a co-author on this paper because in my third or fourth year, I made very little progress on my own PhD project. And so to have a moment of success and just to get something or anything published, Anna gave me one of her many unpublished manuscripts that have been sitting in her virtual drawer for years and years, just to do some more analysis and write it up and submit it to a journal so that it gets published. And I started doing that, and I liked the idea. But then my own project got unstuck maybe half a year after, and then I put that bee paper on the back burner. Then maybe another year later, Shannon, a more junior PhD student in the lab who is actually working on bees, picked that manuscript up again and actually collected some more data, analyzed that, wrote some more, and adopted it as one of her PhD chapters, I believe. And now obviously she's also the first author, and I'm a second author now. And that is a rare success story of unpublished data that never made it out of the lab. Unfortunately, a lot of science is being done without it being published because it's kind of a big hurdle to get things published that are not highly polished. So that's a lot of wasted time and money. So I'm glad I did at least a tiny bit against that.
And the results are that it doesn't really matter at all whether the flower is vertical or horizontal, or whether the flower does have a labellum that sticks out or one that doesn't stick out. The bees are equally good or bad at landing on any of those flowers, and they also don't prefer to land on one flower type versus another flower type. And in general, they are fairly bad because in more than 30% of the cases, the bees slid off or they had to make a second attempt at landing. And that is interesting because in the past, people have just assumed that those labellums are also serving as landing platforms and not just as nectar guides, which is that they kind of guide the bee towards the nectar with patterns and maybe also of ultraviolet patterns and colors. So it was important to test whether that actually is the case, and we have shown it's not that obviously the case and maybe not at all. So future studies, especially with pollinators in the lab, should consider the type of flower that they are presenting them.